thank you certainly for all of you joining us in our session. Excited to talk about AI and kind of real world use cases and how to realize some economic value within your businesses. So as Mike mentioned, I lead implementation and customer success at Upstart. Upstart's an AI lending marketplace, so we've been using predictive AI since 2012. And we've got a lot of kind of work going on in various areas of bringing in LLMs and agentic AI into various areas of our business. But excited to be joined today by Doug Vargo, Sam Porras, Brad Reynolds, and Rob Krause. And I'll let them introduce themselves to the group. Do you want to start, Doug?
Yes, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Doug Vargo. I work with CGI. I lead a group called the Emerging Technologies Practice. And as we look at emerging technologies, it is a broad spectrum, but I focus a lot on platform modernization, helping organizations move to the cloud, helping organizations modernize their data estates, working on data management, traditional data management, narrow AI, and now the generative AI aspect, which is probably why we're here today. Additionally, helping organizations break down the silos between business and IT to really accelerate business digital transformation and adopt technologies such as generative AI.
Hey everyone, I'm Sam Porras. I work for a company called Slalom. We're a technology consulting company. I lead our AI go-to-market and delivery capabilities for our Ohio clients. And I also lead our client portfolio that's focused around retail, CPG, transportation, and quick service restaurants.
Hey, I'm Brad Reynolds. I'm the co-founder and chief strategy officer at Expedient. I actually built and sold the company about 20 years ago, and I came back to run the AI platform practice. So I'm also the SVP of AI, so just kind of building up AI infrastructure inside of our data centers and cloud services.
Great. Robert Krause. I'm the global vice president of content innovation sales, right? So that just rolls off the tongue. Basically, what that means is we have very vertically focused solutions and offerings. And my team's responsible for, you hear that term digital transformation. Well, our focus now is our traditional offerings, how are we bringing AI-driven digital transformation to our customers? Same types of solutions, how are we enhancing, how are we improving, and how are we better enabling them?
Great. Well, thank you all. I think it's great to have such a kind of diverse group of people, too, using it in different ways and focus on different industries. So I'll start off with a question, a little bit high level, but like many technologies, AI is somewhere in the hype cycle today, and there's a lot of talk about what it can do. There's a lot of ideas out there. But where do you see it's truly delivering value today? And maybe, Brad, if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, so I'd probably answer that question in terms of where are people willing to spend money today. Mm-hmm. And we initially thought it was going to be, hey, give everybody access to super powerful chat tools, and that'll enable them to be more efficient and effective in their jobs. We just found that message fell flat in the market because there wasn't enough ROI. It's like, hey, I give everybody this book of knowledge, but like, what are they going to do with it? So that it kind of didn't fit there. And so where we find the market's at now is pulling large amounts of enterprise data into a system, a vector store, and then hooking AI into it so that knowledge workers can ask questions of the enterprise data set. So that's where people are willing to invest their time right now. And why is that? Because that problem that you're solving with enterprise data is a problem that was already extant in the company for years. And so you're actually solving something that they can measure and say, hey, this makes me 10x more efficient. This saves me 3,000 hours of processing work. So that's kind of the unlock of where things are at now. And I know later we'll get into where things are going, but that seems to be the spot where everybody is. And I think the important part with that spot is, while we might talk about some exotic and interesting things coming on this panel, you got to start with something that you can actually consume and understand and rationalize that's simple. So stay in the crawl phase before you go and do some of the more exotic stuff with AI is a key to kind of unlocking value.
We're seeing a lot of real success in the customer support and customer service space. So the experience that has been able to evolve around having personalized responses, faster resolution times, and just an overall better customer experience. We've seen a lot of clients successfully use artificial intelligence in that space. And then in the other space too is around content personalization and content creation. As companies are continuing to try to better connect with their clients and with their customers, the more personalization, the more relevant the content that they can create faster is ultimately translating to more sales and more growth. So those are the two biggest areas that we're seeing.
Yeah, and use case matters, more so than ever with generative AI. Selecting the right use case to derive the right value, or at least to derive value for the organization. And value can be a subjective term. And as we help organizations understand what use cases to select, it usually bubbles in. Everyone wants to jump right into that customer value, that customer experience, transforming that customer relationship. But very quickly they realize that either their data is not ready to go or their business processes are not mature enough to be able to drive that. So what we're seeing organizations result to, and we heard a little bit about this in the previous panel, is in the area of software development acceleration, internally, helping to optimize their internal processes. And software development is a great example of that, talking about enhancing the developer experience, faster coding, more quality code, test script generation, test generation, synthetic data generation. All of those are taking what we're starting to see, a 30 to 40% value or 30% productivity gain from our developer, our technical community by embracing these tools. And as they learn more tools, they're getting more value out of the tools. Not because the tools are getting better, they're getting better skills of how to leverage these tools as part of their communicate with these types of models.
Great, and it's interesting, I heard a couple mentions of if you don't have good data, it doesn't matter. It reminds me a little bit about maybe a decade ago, everyone wanted data scientists and everyone was going to have a data science center of excellence, and then everyone soon found out that they really didn't have great enterprise data governance to put the data scientists on top of. So I think when you think about kind of recently, there's a lot of potential out there, but how have you seen AI implemented recently that has really made you excited about what's possible? Maybe we'll start with Rob.
Okay, great. So traditionally we've sold vertical focused solutions. And what's really impactful for me, like when I'm making it consumable to the prospects or customers that I'm talking to, I like to start with, what if you could clone Mary? And Mary's been at a company for 25, 30 years. And Mary knows everything about everything. So I like to, when I talk about the adoption of AI, and you talked about quick wins, right? That ability to unlock those insights, right? To unlock that expertise is something that is translatable, I feel, across a multitude of different use cases. And we can get into specifics, right? How can we, support claims adjuster, supporting this, claims process, significant ROI from that perspective, fraud reduction, or, fraud identification, like, that 10% of loss that you're incurring from fraud. All of these are very real use cases, but I still like to put the person in the loop, right? AI removes the individual, the human from the loop. But I like to make it relevant in terms of how I'm unlocking, how we are able to unlock potential through AI. And one last thing, what I'm finding personally is the ability to leverage AI in, customer-facing conversations. And real quick, so I know nothing about concrete dispatch and planning. I know absolutely zero. But myself, my team, we're able to sit down with a concrete supplier, ask them about what type of process are you looking to automate? Well, dispatch and planning for a concrete supplier. AI in the ability to create the process is an absolute game changer, and something that makes us collectively better at our job. So, sorry, that took a little long.
No, that was definitely a great answer. I think that I really liked your idea about institutional knowledge, and how do you get it out of one person's head and spread that across the organization to have that information available. So if people leave or they retire, you're not kind of losing that knowledge. But Doug, did you have something you wanted to add to?
Just to add to that institutional knowledge, another great use case, which we're seeing a lot of value, is in the state and local space, where most of us own a home. We want to put a fence in, as an example. Well, you have to understand the permits. What's my permit obligation? That can be very confusing. You go to your local site, it's very difficult to find out how long, how big, how far from certain easements I can go. We have deployed a system. It's a natural language conversation now for citizens to be able to ask questions around their permit obligations. And that's just an example within the Department of Environmental Protection of how we can start to engage institutional knowledge that's stored and locked up in internal sites. We can expose that to citizens where now they can consume that information very, very readily in that natural language.
Yeah, I mean, just for me, sticking on the theme of customer service and customer support, we, over the last year, have been working with an airline, a popular airline, United Airlines, to be able to help how they combat against flight changes and informing all of their customers with more personalized content, and also be able to capitalize on the information that they have on their customers to be able to proactively suggest solutions. And the amount of coverage that they're able to get, where they used to have kind of an army of humans to be able to do that, the amount of more customers that they can reach and be able to improve that satisfaction has been, I think one of the numbers is 2x times faster resolution on email-related inquiries. And then, from the number of personalized emails that they were able to generate, I think before they were able to touch 15% of all flights that had schedule changes, and now they're able to get personalized content out to more than 50% of the flights that have schedule changes and all the customers on board. And that's really meaningful change in terms of how you connect with your customer. So that to be able to kind of bridge that gap in communication, have more empathetic communications back and forth, has been a big game changer for them. So that's exciting for me. I don't know how many times, I'm sure we've all experienced this, that you leave very dissatisfied or feel very cold after interacting with a company, whether it's through a lot of their automated systems or in their, whether it's through a computer or through a phone. And just to be able to represent that brand all the way through to your customer support is a really exciting opportunity for all companies across all industries to be able to engage in.
Definitely, as somebody who's a frequent flyer and often on United, any improvement on rescheduling is something I'm in favor of. So, I know as you think about like organizational transformation, a lot of times there are kind of top-down ideas where somebody says, go create an AI task force, or go do this, or start using AI in your business, but they don't really kind of give any additional direction. So then it becomes maybe the kind of mid-level managers and staff level opportunities to start figuring out how to actually do it. So as you think about people implementing and figuring out how to take action and actually do something about driving that ball forward for AI, what sort of advice do you have for people who are in that position where there's a top-down mandate to use AI in your business?
The first thing we recommend our clients is you have to be able to invest at a company-wide level, and this is very relevant to what President Carter was saying. I was so excited to hear that message. Is you have to be able to make an investment at the core level to get a baseline understanding of how to interact with and how to work with AI. What does AI need in terms of information? What kind of things do you as a human, as a person, need to provide back? And so to be able to get that baseline understanding across all of the different job roles within your organization is going to give your company a huge lift, because then things start coming together in terms of, I'm a master of my job, I'm a master of all the different tasks that makes up my job, and I'm able to start orchestrating those pieces together and understand where AI can help me. It's not very different than when Google and the modern search engine came back and it's like, oh shoot, I don't quite know the answer to that, let me go and Google it for you. Now we have that information, even more relevant company information available at a much faster pace. And so being able to invest in that core knowledge of how to interact with and how to be fluent in AI is one of the first things. The second thing that we advise is make sure that you provide your subject matter experts across any job domain or across any problem that you're trying to tackle. Make sure you enable access to those folks within your organizations to be able to efficiently solve those problems. And facilitate that orchestration across teams. Don't make it an IT-only mandate. Don't make it a marketing-only mandate to enable AI. It's got to be information from across the entire organization, and that's when the biggest problems that can be solved with AI are ultimately able to be solved.
And I think you made a very interesting point. You know, it's the information across the enterprise. So a fundamental building block, I think, is this realization of, 80 to 90% of your content is unstructured, right? And you got 21 different repositories where all this stuff is stored. And that realization, I think, allows you to approach it in the correct light, like the governance, if you will, and the importance of where does the intelligence lie? How do I unlock those insights? And how am I making sure that it is continuously relevant? Like I'm getting the right response. So you talked about like the importance of that enterprise data lake, central point of truth. I would argue that an additional lens to look at is this concept of federation. Like how, as I'm looking at my enterprise, can I leverage the knowledge stored within multiple different repositories through a single federated lens? And the companies that figure that out are the ones that are going to be up here talking next year or next meeting. But it's exciting time. So, sorry.
And I also think it's important that we recognize that AI enablement is not a one-size-fits-all model. You have different personas, you have different users across your enterprise. How you enable them has to be very unique. If you try to enable a developer the same way you're enabling one of your executives, they will say, AI is not ready for me, or I don't get value out of this. You really need to make sure you're using use cases and scenarios to really be able to make it very personal to them. To be honest with you, use AI to make it personal to them based off of your uniqueness of the organization. Leverage the tools to enable the tools better within your organization.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting conversation we're having a lot internally right now. Like the use case really matters, right? How confident do you need to be in the output of the AI? And if you're doing something, we work in our clients are all in a regulated industry in financial services, and we're regulated in many ways. And so, if we're handling things that are covered by some federal regulation, the confidence level in like the answer to the borrower, the answer to the applicant, or the answer to one of our bank partners supporting them through a regulatory exam is very different than if we're ideating on something internally and trying to get more information about a certain concept or topic, and then that idea of like having kind of sources of truth and guardrails around what you will and will not permit. So actually kind of leads into the next question, and maybe Brad, we'll start with you on this one. What would you say like biggest challenges are when trying to operationalize AI and actually bring it into not just a test or a pilot or a POC, but a true formal use within a business?
Yeah, so I think it's like picking the right problem to try and solve is the big piece. So there's problems that come up when we do kind of discovery and ideation where it's like, okay, that's a business intelligence problem. It doesn't actually really need AI. It can be solved in other ways, so don't try and solve it with AI. But then it's picking out something that, a process that has measurable impact to a company, but doesn't necessarily need to be solved holistically. So I was talking with somebody earlier about the process of dealing with credit card chargeback claims and all the different sources and pieces of data that needs to roll through when a human does it. So oh yeah, we want to have AI come in and fix that process. And so that workflow is highly valuable. So definitely from a CEO or board perspective, say, we can solve that process, we're going to transform our company. But that is a very difficult thing to solve in one swath. So therefore, you're like, well, AI can't do it because it didn't solve this whole problem. But the way you need to look at that problem is, can we break that into its 30 constituent components, and can we plug an AI agent into step 14 and 25? And we chose 14 and 25 because they're part of that process. It makes it more efficient, but they're also relatively easy to solve. There's enough complication with the systems and the AI computation and getting the data clean and right that it's like, let's pick a couple easy success wins that are part of an overall grander process, because once it's part of that process, you now have buy-in from all the constituents of that process. They're like, yeah, if we can solve this, this is something that's very measurable and impactful. So making sure to start with something that you can kind of piecemeal and solve some of those pieces relatively quickly, and then the confidence in the company will be built around AI.
Great. I think one thing then that I really wanted to get probably everyone on the panel's thoughts on is, the topic of our panel is real use cases and ROI. So as you think about the use cases, and Brett, I liked one thing you said about not everything is a problem that needs solved by AI. Sometimes it's just you need to make a change in your product or automate something, and that's not an AI use case. It's just a kind of a bug fix almost in some ways, or a feature creation. So how do you think about measuring success, whether it's within your own organization or advising clients on how to really measure the success and the ROI of AI initiatives? And maybe we'll just start with Doug and kind of move through the group.
I said this earlier, use case matters. Use case is so pivotal when it comes to generative AI, and Brad talked about some of the real core characteristics. I have the opportunity to talk to all industries and talk to organizations that are early on in their journey to those that are already adopting and scaling generative AI across the enterprise. And as we work with those organizations, we start with what is the transformational value that they're looking for? What's the corporate vision? What are the bottoms-up business processes that are core foundational that's driving that organization? And then let's figure where is the art of the possible when it comes to generative AI? And make sure you select the right technology. As Brad just talked about, not everything needs a generative AI or even AI. It could just be intelligent automation, or it could just be natural language processing. Many different techniques can solve the problem. So understand what the business case is. What is the value? What are the techniques that I need? But then also think about understanding that use case around data. Do I have the right data? Is my data highly qualified? Change management. Never underestimate change management, especially in AI. Just because you build it does not mean folks are going to start using that. And there's many characteristics that you look at for each use case to see, is it the right fit for the organization. Earlier, we had a panelist from Cardinal Health. She led data and analytics. And she talked about what we'll call an ask a data solution. And she said, it's not really that complex. It's just a natural language conversation or a chatbot, but it's bringing tremendous value to the organization. And I love the way she put it. She recognized that it was not complex, but it was something of high value to them that was saving them millions of dollars because of just the ecosystem in which it was deployed.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really interesting question is how do you measure value? Because I mean, value ultimately is subjective and is going to be different to different individuals, right? The AI use cases that are gaining traction within organizations are primarily focused around cost savings and efficiency gains, right? We're seeing a lot of relevant use cases that are gaining traction within the enterprise around software development. I mentioned around customer support. And when you really ultimately ladder up a lot of the value, it is around cost savings and efficiency. Mm-hmm. But I think, as we kind of think about like the long-term value of where artificial intelligence is, we're really focused on the near-term productivity and efficiency values right now. But like that needs to ultimately lead to differentiation, right? And how companies are ultimately going to be working different, right? And that ultimately needs, is going to lead to disruption. Disruption right now, by definition, happens once in a blue moon because you happen to have, a bunch of things that align in order to hit it big on a disruption area. But where we can tangibly measure value right now in the productivity and efficiency area, because we know that like we can tally out the dollars that are being saved. The unknown is going to be employee satisfaction. There's going to be completely different ways of working, and that is ultimately going to be what starts getting more value in the long term. But it's a little bit harder to define. So I didn't fully answer the question, but like it's the tangible things right now is cost savings and efficiency, but there is so much more opportunity for value in AI in the future.
Yeah, so I've built some companies and sold them, and I've built some that have failed. And I've found that companies are generally run by one of two individuals, a spreadsheet individual or a sales individual. I like the sales individual a lot more than the spreadsheet, but right now we have to prove that AI is valuable. So we're in this mode of efficiency where it's how much time did we solve, or what processes did we make more efficient. But looking at it as an entrepreneur, I think about it as, hey, if I could have this core group of 30 people that built a company with me versus 300, I can be so much more effective because we can all be understanding what we're trying to do and have a very cohesive culture. And so being able to do that in a very small group is an awesome thing and extremely powerful. So when I look at, okay, that's how we're measuring now, it's what efficiencies are we're gaining. We're gaining those efficiencies as kind of training wheels to what we really want to do, which we want to grow faster. So I want to be able to ask the question to AI, and we can, but it'll get better, of what's my company's main thesis? What should I be thinking about when I'm positioning myself out in the market? Those are very hard to put onto a spreadsheet. It's like, what's the essence of company X or Y or Z? It's in the kind of communal and team aspect of what that culture is. And AI is going to be able to help us once we get past the trust factor, which is the efficiency gains, to be like, how do we unlock growth from it? And that's the part that is harder to measure. And we're going to build the trust to be able to allow us to take those risks through a lot of the efficiency gains that we're looking at now.
Yeah, I'm thinking, and I'm going back to when we started today. They talked about this gold mine, right? And I think that realization is pretty impactful, right? There is a gold mine, and unlocking that gold mine is really our goal. And that's the top-down directive that a lot of us are getting. It can be overwhelming. Where the heck do I start? So I always challenge in the conversations like the fundamental questions, right? Is this a challenge? Is it worth addressing? Is it worth addressing now? Okay? It's a good way to really foundationally set, like, what is the thing I'm trying to accomplish? And how can I use this view to get to, I love what you said, process and efficiency gains. But then another comment was differentiation. You know, what's success for a lot of you is, how are you uniquely qualified? How is your company uniquely qualified? How are you uniquely positioned to do the thing that no one else can do? So I know I'm preaching a little bit, but it really start at a foundational level and really get laser focused on building these successes to drive towards true transformation.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of really good insight there. It is it's a hard thing to say. Like, efficiency is pretty easy to measure. Productivity of each individual employee as they grow can be a little bit more difficult to measure depending on what they do. And it's certainly something we're talking about. We're telling employees, go out and try all these tools. That shadow IT concept, like, try a lot of things. We don't have to make any of these enterprise tools yet. We will eventually decide what the real use cases are, where the value is. But I think as you think about that, then you think, the workforce of the future, both people coming out of school and are going to be looking for their first job and looking for their careers, and then maybe mid and senior career employees who have various levels of comfort with different technologies. And I'd love some thoughts on, how are you thinking about upskilling the employees that you do have, to make them more productive. I think maybe to alleviate some of the fears of AI is going to take your job and you're all going to be replaced by robots. But then also like identifying those skills in potential new hires who can really help you transform your business. So maybe I'll start, Doug, with you.
Well, I'll first challenge that AI will take some jobs, right? So AI, we're already starting to see this. In fact, we just saw yesterday, a CrowdStrike came out with an announcement. They are going to reduce their staff by 5%, directly related to AI. That's probably the first time I've heard that a company has come out and talked about those productivity gains and equated that to actual layoffs or job skills. So as we start to think about job skills, one thing that's important, I talked about persona. So as you enable your workforce, make sure you make it relative to them. But also understand that communicating with AI or generative AI is not a Google search. And you need to be able to teach people how to do prompt engineering. It's a new term that we have. So one of the upskilling and roles that we're going to start to see is refocus on technical writing. Believe it or not, getting back to how do you write a technical prompt that communicates directly with the large language models to get the output that you're achieving for. That's going to be a big part of upskilling individuals, is to return to technical writing, structured authoring, so you can truly articulate your vision and what you're asking the models to do.
Yeah, and I think one thing we've been certainly coaching employees on who are trying new technologies within their jobs is the first prompt to use, if it doesn't give you the right answer, don't give up. Like, you have to keep trying, and especially if you're not using maybe a large language model that's trained on the universe of data like ChatGPT, you're using something more internally fit for a specific use case, trained on a narrower set. You have to keep trying and you have to help train it, and the more you use it, the better it will get. That first answer is not going to be the answer you're going to use, so keep going.
I think I talked a little bit earlier about just establishing a core, right? Being able to have a core knowledge or a fluency in AI. I think, when you think about upskilling employees, it's really looking at an entire job role and being able to understand what are the particular tasks of that job role that are good candidates for partnership or integration with AI. And so that is, I think, a quality that we need to teach our hiring managers, our talent development specialists for organizations, is to say, what does that new job role look like in the future, right? Because the expectation of someone to come in and do that job role as it is today, that's going to need to evolve. And so that's partnership with the rest of the company, and that's partnerships with those AI councils that are being stood up to be like, how can we take that specific thing, a sales role, for example, and say, well, maybe prospecting is a thing that can be done way better with AI. That's not changing the sales job, right? You're still at the core needing to be able to do a whole bunch of tasks that ladder up to a sales. And so I think it's being able to have organizations understand and decompose a job role to be able to understand where there's power in AI is a thing that we need to do. The other thing too is that we need to be able to upskill in creativity, right? So being able to interact with artificial intelligence, being able to ask better questions, and then being able to challenge and give feedback of like, I hear what you're telling me, but this is also, based on my experience, what I've seen work. And these are some of the intangible things that you're not seeing because it hasn't been documented and you don't have access to this data. It's like, those of us that have kids, AI is a 12-year-old right now. We need to be able to teach it the right things to do, where to look, and also how to think in a more mature fashion. So those are the pieces that I think is a challenge for us as we continue to evolve with artificial intelligence.
It's interesting that it's almost like it's more the soft skills that you have to increase and develop to be better at using the new hard skills that you need. Anything, Brad or Rob, anything you want to add on the idea of workforce and training for the future?
Yeah, so I think you start with the end state, and each company will be like, here's where we think AI is going. My personal opinion is the end state is you're going to be managing sets of AI agents over time. And so if that's the end state, then how do we prepare people for that eventuality? And what we're looking at is we might have some technical expertise in pockets around AI, but I wouldn't say we have training expertise around AI. And just giving everybody AI and saying, hey, go figure it out yourself, or having technical people try and educate non-technical people, very difficult. So we're waiting or looking for companies that are going to be out there that we can go hire the same way that we hire folks to educate our company about cybersecurity, so that, okay, these folks are experts and experts in job role areas, and they can help, like kind of almost like not college, but like a light kind of courseware we can put people through for consistency. So we haven't found it yet, but I would think that there are multiple people in the woodwork that are going to be coming out that we will engage.
Yeah, no, I think there's certainly a lot out there with OpenAI Academy, but there's almost an unlimited amount of things that you can train, and you can learn, and the quality of those is probably yet to see. We certainly did that with, at least I did with the people who report to me. Recently was shared some like AI or Die, which is a really great podcast about implementing AI in your business and how everyone needs to think about it, and some other kind of memos and mission statements and podcasts, and even AWS has some good, very foundational, basic tools. And I asked everyone to take those trainings, listen to the podcasts, read the memos, and keep that kind of back of mind as they're thinking about how can I use this in my specific job. So I think one question I certainly want to get to is in the last few minutes we have, and it came to mind a little bit yesterday. I do a lot of work with the bank regulators, and so I talk to the prudential regulators, OCC, FRB, FDIC, on a regular basis. And I was on a call with one of them yesterday, and at the start of the call, we were on Zoom, they read a disclaimer, and one of it was no recording, but also no AI companions can be transcribing the call that we're on. And it wasn't a particularly sensitive call, it was just education, information sharing, talking about innovation. And so, when you think about AI trends or emerging tools, like what are you maybe personally excited about, or maybe a little bit afraid of in different areas? Either one. So maybe Rob, any?
Ooh, great
That's
question.
a big one. Anybody can start, but.
Come back to me. I'm
Okay.
chewing on that one.
Yeah, so I've got one, and it's a website. So it's November N, the number 8, letter N, so n8n.io. It's a workflow and agentic automation creation system that's a little Docker container you can spin up in 10 minutes and start building agentic AI workflows. Phenomenal. Like, I was absolutely blown away by it. Been messing with it and building it into systems for the last month or so at our company, but it's free. So as people are talking about AI agents and AI workflows, it's like you can literally start playing with it, and what are you doing? You don't need big compute because you're just calling AI models that are out on the open internet. So it's very cool for ideating on the agentic AI stuff.
And I think that's probably the biggest differentiator is the companies that are going to get it right around industry-specific AIs. You have the macro level view, but then you have the micro level view that is purpose-built for my particular challenge. And I think that has me excited, but it also has me scared because that's Hyland's secret sauce, right? That vertical expertise. So I just wanted to add those comments.
What gets me excited right now, and I don't think we're truly there, is autonomy. We haven't seen true autonomous agents that really do the full end-to-end aspect where they think for themselves. Everything right now has a human in the loop for the most part. There's a human in the loop, and rightfully so. People are still, I'll say, getting their feet wet with AI, and unfortunately, some people have gotten dinged on it because they let agents make autonomous decisions where they were wrong. And that's when you get a lawyer in the loop, which is never good. So if we can continue with the human in the loop, but eventually we're going to get to truly autonomous. And once we get to autonomy, it's a little bit scared. The movies teach us to be scared over that, but at the same time, that's where the big opportunity is.
Yeah, I think for me, I've been really interested in, it's not a specific tool, but it's image recognition and image generation technology. Like when you think about kind of the factor of like what truly makes up intelligence, I mean, you have text, you have language, and images is the next thing, right? And as we start to combine all of those three together, like we're truly gonna get, super intelligence. And so right now, the way to learn and communicate is through words and text. Images, I think, is gonna be the big thing that we will continue to help us get smarter as a society.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. Well done.